In today's video, we're going to preview the Chelsea versus West Ham game. On screen now, I've got the team that I would start. Of course, this is in possession. So let's talk about how I would line us up from the get-go. And a lot of people are probably going to disagree with this, but there's for a few different reasons. So if Malo Gusto is available and he's ready to play, brilliant. I have a feeling him and Lavia both won't be ready to start the game. Most I can imagine is them being on the bench, which I'd be absolutely fine with and I'd be happy with. So if they're on the bench, happy days. In which case, we can't start Disasi at right back again. I think that was an absolute disaster. I think he stunted a lot of the progression out from the back. It was making us very predictable, and I just wouldn't go for that. If anything, I'd put Fofana at right back and start tossing as the central centre back with Cole as the left centre back. But to get the best out of the team, I would prefer to have Casado inverting into the middle. It still creates this midfield line of Casado and Vega. Vega can sit in there as a bit more stagnant of a player, especially being the sort of holding number 6 in the 4-1-4-1 out of possession or 4-3-3 out of possession system. This would then obviously shuffle into the back three, the best back three that we've seen in terms of how it looks on ball, with Colwell in the middle, Fofana on the outside of the block where he can carry forwards and sort of progress from there. I'd have Palmer and Enzo coming back into the team. I think you need him for the control, especially against a team like West Ham who are going to sit off a little bit, and you want him to almost start to control the tempo and allow Chelsea to build rhythm in the game. So I'll definitely be starting him as that left central mid. Able to drop in, form part of that three with Palmer pushing forward, so you can sort of make that 3-3-4 at times as well. So that is what I would do with those two here. In which case I'd have Madueke, Jackson, and then Sancho I would start on the left. I would start Neto from the bench. Nothing major, just I think Sancho deserves a start. Want to see that dynamic. I think that will work well in this game for Sancho starting on the wing. The issue for me is, of course, the Nkunku scenario. So let's talk a little bit about that. With Nkunku, he's in a position now where he's just scored a big goal off the bench, and obviously he's going to want to be starting the games, right? But I think overall, right now, I think Maresca's still going to want to stay with Jackson, especially in a game like this, where he's sort of going to want him to sort of occupy both these centre backs and make them work hard. So I could see a scenario in which Jackson works hard for that 65 minutes, really trying to wear down the opposition defence, making runs in behind, just being awkward, being a nuisance. And then Nkunku's introduced in the second half to be that box threat, like he was late on against Bournemouth. So I think that could be a similar sort of pattern that we see in this game. We'll have Nkunku in their starting lineup, and if he starts as the striker, I would not be shocked at all. It's just I believe that with Jackson starting in here, and it's important to say this is kind of a predicted 11, but also kind of just what I would like to see. Because, for example, Casado starting as the right back and inverting into midfield, it's more what I want to see. If I was to predict what happens, I'm quite worried that it's probably more likely to be Disasi starting at right back again, which I don't want to see. But if we're going to talk about West Ham and what they're going to offer in this game, and I think this is really important, Chelsea are going to have to be really careful on the ball in this area of the pitch with this 5 or with the 3-3 if Enzo drops in. Because with these two players sort of narrowing in, so this would be Kudus and, say, Bowen, or Kudus and Somerville, depending if Bowen plays up front or somewhere else. Depends what they do with the lineup. But these players are they're massive threats. And if, say, Casado's inverting in and the ball is lost in the middle of the park in these areas and we're not controlling the run of the game and we're allowing them to build a little bit ahead of steam and make it a bit scrappy and winning little second balls in these sorts of areas, that is when these guys can attack 1v1 against them. And if they get past them, and you can almost sometimes see a 4v3 against a backline if you lose the ball in those areas. So no matter how compact the midfield is, a lot of people having issues at the minute with saying that we're conceding goals in transition or that we're conceding chances in transition. If the on-ball principles are not safe and you're not securing the ball, controlling the tempo, and you are giving the ball up in this area of the pitch, you are subsequently going to concede transition attacks. That is just what happens if you lose the ball in those areas. It's mistakes lead to chances like that. So you have to be, especially in a game like this, where West Ham have so much attacking threat. Kudus is unbelievable on the break. Same with Bowen. He's very efficient on the break. Same with Somerville if he's playing. You need to cut those mistakes out, and you need to protect the ball and slow the game down to our tempo. Don't let it get out of control, especially in that first half away from home at the London Stadium at a 12:30 kickoff on a Saturday. I think we have to just be really patient in this game and not come out the blocks flying almost. Just sort of try and take this as a slow, steady nature and kill the fans' momentum and really slow West Ham down to our pace where we can then start to control. So what else do we need to touch on? I think the other thing that's worth mentioning is sort of the impact of Madueke in this game. Because I think, again, if Kudus starts on the left with Bowen starting on the right, Madueke is probably the best matchup for someone like Kudus in terms of coming back as a defensive winger. So we need. That's why I would start Madueke on the right instead of Neto. I'm seeing some lineups having Madueke dropped. I mean, I wouldn't drop him anyway. I think he's been one of our best players this season already, and he's of course he's been in good form. He's scored the hat trick even in the games where he hasn't, like even last few weeks where he hasn't had the same output. I think his importance to the overall system is still really key. So I would have him in the team to deal with Kudus, to drop into that 5 at times when needed. So it'd be more like this. Again, to protect Casado's not a natural right back, so again this would help having sort of that body. And I think Madueke's he's got the most athleticism and sort of body capabilities in terms of strength and power to play against somebody like Kudus, who's very good at winning his duels. So I think that's important too. And then Sancho can be more of that outlet player. He can sort of secure the ball with his back to play, and then he can link and attack, and he can get into these zones here, and he can really just make things happen 1v1 on that other side of the pitch. So I think that would be quite an important dynamic to watch, is Madueke versus Kudus if Kudus starts on the left. Again, as I said, it kind of comes down to how West Ham set up, because the two ways they could really go is they could continue to persist with Antonio up front. I'm assuming that instead of Souček, we'll probably see Paqueta back in the number 10. So up front, their options are Antonio, who started the season quite poorly, but he's been in the games. He got hooked at half-time against Fulham, to put Bowen up front. So that's their other option, to go with Bowen up front, in which case you'd probably see Kudus on the right, Somerville on the left. And then the other option, of course, is Fulkrug if he's back from injury. But I'm not quite sure on that. I think the presses are going on pretty much as I'm recording this video. So hopefully we'll know what the deal is with him. And of course they've got Danny Ings, but he came on, scored late against Fulham, but he is more of a late sort of substitute at this point in his career. He's good in and around the box, but I don't think they'll be looking to start him to cause issues, especially on the break against Chelsea. So I think the most likely options are Antonio to continue to start, or Bowen to start up front, considering Fulkrug is probably not match fit, or at least not ready to play from the start. So to sort of summarise what I'm thinking, I think 1v1s out wide are going to be really key. I think the defensive work of Madueke is going to be extremely key. I think we have to be really safe and pragmatic on the ball, especially in the first half. Slow that tempo down, control the game. And lastly, I think these sort of pockets are where you want to hit in transition, and it needs to be Jackson sort of spraying from side to side. Again, like I said, that first 65 minutes working really hard to make it awkward for these defenders who will try to step up and stop him turning at times. Yes, they're not the most aggressive team out of possession, but they will not want Jackson to receive the ball on the turn. So they will step into these zones with him, something I saw a lot against Fulham. For West Ham, the likes of Kilman and Mavropanos stepping into those areas. So Jackson has to try and occupy those areas and do what he does best. Play on the spin, try and get away, try and draw fouls, get Chelsea up the pitch. Just make it a nightmare for these two defenders. And then you do have the options of Nkunku, Felix off the bench, Neto on either wing, to really make that change late on in the game if you need to. But like I say, I think I want this to be a slower, more controlled game for Chelsea. Hopefully we get to see Casado in that right back role. The other thing I didn't mention about the right back role is, of course, I'd love to see Acheampong, but I'm just not speaking about it because I spoke about it last week and it didn't happen. And the likelihood is it just won't happen. So that's why I'm not talking about it. But I would absolutely love it, and I'll be tweeting about it and everything. If he's in the lineup, I will be over the moon. I think he's absolutely class. So I think we've touched on everything there for the preview that I wanted to touch on. We will try and get the video out at least Sunday, if not Monday, for the things we learned, which will have, of course, all the tactical analysis, all the pictures pulled from the game, vice versa. And then next week, we will do some streams and stuff to discuss the last few games, as we haven't done a tactics talk stream in a few weeks. So I hope you guys have enjoyed the preview. Please do drop a like, as it really does help out the channel. Let me know any other suggestions for videos you would like to see. Let me know in the comments down below, and subscribe if you haven't already.